Okay, the topic for today is rodent management. So I'm going to use the whiteboard. The lecture outline will be uploaded in the Putra Blast a little bit later, but I think it's sufficient for the presentation this morning. And this is much more important actually than the lecture outline that will be posted later on, uploaded later on. So let's focus on the whiteboard. So what is rodent? Okay. So that's the topic for today. Rodent. This is a particular order in the class Mammalia. Okay. Okay, everybody is familiar with mammals. Mammals, what are the characteristics of mammals? They give birth, okay, and they have covering of hairs. So basically, that's the most common feature shared by all mammals. So rodent is one of the order, and there are many other orders. You can look that up later, but perhaps I can list down a few here. Apart from rodents, okay, the full designation is Rodentia. You have carnivora. This constitute of tigers, yeah, cats, etc., lions. And then you have what else? Insectivora, shrews. Okay, the common house shrews. And then you have the chelonia, not chelonia. You have the primates. This constitute the monkeys, apes, gorillas, macaques, etc. Okay, and there are many more, about 30 or so. Just like the various orders in the class Insecta. Okay. So let's look at some of the features of rodents. Now, there are not many species of mammals, perhaps about 5,000, more than 5,000 species of mammals. About 40%, okay, 40% of these are rodents. It's a big majority. Yeah? So about 2,000, yeah, maybe 2,000 plus, a little more than 2,000. So it's a big order, a huge order, and there are many kinds of rodents. Although we will focus, we are interested more or less on rats in this particular course. And in Malaysia in particular, we have rats, squirrels, and porcupines. So these are the most common rodents in our country. And there are many more different kinds of rodents. The largest is capybara. Now you can find this in South America. What else? You have the gerbiles and hamsters. It was a popular one. Hamster, guinea pigs. What else? Chipmunks, the popular cartoon character, chipmunks, and prairie dogs, beavers, otters. These are all rodents, and many more. Okay, not to forget the flying squirrels. Okay, so it's a big or huge model consisting of various kinds of species that comes under different families. Okay, that gives you some idea of rodents. Okay, of course, we are going to discuss on rodents as pests, sebagai perosak. Okay. And a bulk of our discussion will involve rats, ticos. And before that, I would like to remind you, when we talk about rats, in Malaysia, there are particularly 5 species of rats that are considered as pests. Rosa. Perhaps I can list them down here. Ratus theomanicus. I'll spell it in full. Ratus theomanicus. Okay. Now this is a oil palm rat. Then we have Ratus argentiventer. This is a rice field rat. Then we have Ratus diardii, diardii. Okay. This is a field rat, tikus lapangan. And then we have Ratus. Okay, what's the difference between the one the preceding one? So here you have Ratus. The preceding one is Ratus diardii. So this is actually a subspecies. Of this one. Yeah. And the first 3, 1, 2, 3, these are agricultural pests. Yeah. But the last 2, the 4th one and the 5th one, that is Ratus norvegicus. Norvegicus means Norway, Norway rat. But that does not mean that this rat actually comes from Norway, because this one, number 4 and number 5, they are cosmopolitan. What is cosmopolitan? Cosmopolitan means around the world. You can find these 2 particular species everywhere. on the globe, wherever you go. And they have their common names, which I will indicate later. But the first thing that comes to mind when we mention about rat, they are not necessarily pests. Not all of them are pests. Perhaps there are 20 or more species, perhaps more than 20 species. You can look them up in the guide book of wildlife of Peninsular Malaysia and Sabah and Sarawak. And some of these, in fact, most of them are protected by law. Okay, protected by law. We will look at this later when we come across the management of wildlife, conflict between wildlife and mankind. So they are protected by law. And mind you, there are two species that are actually endemic. So what does endemic means? Endemic means you can only find that particular species here and nowhere else. One particular species, Ratus baluensis, can only be found in Sabah, in the foothills of Gunung Kinabalu, the Mount Kinabalu. That's the only place where you can find Ratus baluensis. If it is extinct, it is gone forever. You will never find any other individual outside of Sabah, in fact, beyond the foothills of Gunung Kinabalu. Then the other one is Ratus inas. As we know, inas is in Negeri Sembilan. So that's the only place where you find this particular rat species, Ratus inas. So this is just to remind you that when we mention the word rat, not all of them are vermin. What is vermin? Vermin means troublesome, or animals that we particularly avoid, that we consider as troublesome. Among other things, they may become vectors of public of diseases, zoonotic diseases. That will also be discussed in detail later on. Okay, what actually makes a rodent? A rodent. What are the features? Features of a rodent. Okay, what are the shared characteristics? Okay, I'll list them down. Number one, they have a pair of incisors on the upper and lower jaw. So incisors are gigi kacip. So they have two on the upper jaw, two on the lower jaw. Okay. Number two, they lack canine. Dia tak ada gigi taring. They don't have canines. Like we do have canines. We have incisors. We have 4 on the upper jaw and 4 on the lower jaw, and then guarded on both sides by canines. So we have 2 on the upper jaw, 2 on the lower jaw, gigi taring. But rodents, they don't have. Instead, they have an empty space between the incisor and the molar. So in our case, we have the incisor, canine, and premolar and molar. But in rodents, they don't. Instead of having a canine, that space is called a diastema. A diastema. Then, like any other animal, they have the molars, the premolars and the molars for chewing. Let's draw the uh, graphical representation of rodent dentition. So we have the incisor here and also the incisor here. But they don't have the canine, so we have the molars. So this space, empty space, is called a diastema. Okay. So there's a difference between other mammals and the rodents. The fact that they have this hollow space, a diastema, which have a survival value. What is the survival value of the diastema? It helps in the avoidance of injury, because rodents and rats in particular, they will bite on hard materials or hard surfaces. So the debris, serpihan-serpihan, will be automatically ejected or removed from the vocal cavity ataupun ruang mulut. And so that will avoid injury. So it has that survival value. Okay. Now, there's another feature or characteristic that is shared by all rodents. They have an open root canal. Can you see that? Open root canal. Open root canal, meaning to say that the teeth will grow continuously throughout life. It won't stop growing. Not like us. Our teeth stop growing at certain stage in our life, and it will remain so. But in rodents, it will grow continuously because they have an open root canal. Maknanya akar terbuka. In our case, we have a closed root canal, sistem akar tertutup. And there is also a survival value for that, because rodents, they bite on hard material. Okay? This is an incisor. This is how it is arranged. Okay? This is the upper one. This is the lower one. Okay? Upper and lower. Okay? So when it bites on the hard surfaces, it will start to wear off. Okay? Start to wear off. And there is a need for wearing of the teeth so that it will remain sharpened and enable it to bite through hard material. And by doing so, because of the teeth growing continuously, by wearing it off, that will keep the height of the tooth, paras gigi, ketinggian gigi tadi tetap. So the height of the teeth will remain constant, and yet it will remain sharpened. In fact, one of the hardest tooth in the animal kingdom actually belongs to the rat. They have the hardest tooth. And why is it arranged in this way? Because we know our teeth. Okay, consider this is our teeth, the human teeth. It is covered by enamel. It covers or protects the dentine. Dentine is the internal structure. Okay. The enamel is hard, but not the dentine. Dentine is quite brittle. So by having enamel, it will protect your teeth from decay. But if there is a cavity. Okay, there's a hole here. So in other words, the dentin is exposed, and that will lead to the teeth falling off. Okay, okay. And you need to see the dentist. But in the case of rat, the hard enamel only covers the external part of the teeth, okay, but not the internal part, the external surface. The internal surface, this is dentin. The dentin is exposed. Okay, it's not protected by the enamel. So when it slides, the lower incisor slides with the upper incisor, it actually wear off the dentin. So allowing it to for the teeth to be sharpened as it bites. That would not happen in the case of human teeth or any other animals, because the enamel will actually provide protection, or it will cover the dentin from the process of wearing off. So that's a difference between the open root canal and the closed root canal. So the rodents, they have the open root canal, and human, we have the closed root canal. So these are the 4 characteristics: number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's number 5. Okay, this one is regarding the dental structure, and also the characteristics of the dentin, the teeth. Number 5, they have the upper, they have the foreleg, and the hind leg, the kaki hadapan and kaki belakang, and they have 4 digits. 4 digits or toes on the foreleg, and 5 digits or toes on the hind leg. So next time around, if you catch a rat, look at the foreleg. Dia ada 4 jari pada kaki hadapan. 4 digits or 4 fingers, quote unquote, in the foreleg, and then 5 digits on the hind legs. So these are the characteristics that are shared by all rodents, and that's what makes a rodent a rodent. Yeah? Okay. So based on this, all the different animals that I have listed down just now: capybara, prairie dog, hamsters, gerbil, flying squirrel, the kangaroo rat, the bandicoot, and what else? There are so many of them. All of them share these 5 characteristics. Okay. Okay, let's list down what are the roles, and why are they considered pests, and in what way or in what situation they are considered as pests. Number 1, I think the most important one is they play the role as agent of zoonotic disease. So what is a zoonotic disease? I think we have explained this before. Disease that is transmissible or communicable from animal to man, and vice versa. Okay. So in this case, do we consider COVID-19 as zoonotic? Originally, yes. Even though they could not actually identify the host, where it actually came from. Previously, it said it came from bats. Later on, we have come from pangolin. But nobody can tell exactly what is the original host. But now COVID is being communicable disease or transmissible from one fellow human being to another. So we do not consider COVID-19 as a zoonotic disease. Perhaps originally it was. Now, so this is the number one issue when we consider a rodent as pest. So what are the diseases? We can list them down. Number one, of course, the most important and recent is leptospirosis. Kencing tikus. But there are many more. I will list 2 or 3. But you can look at the list later on when I put up the lecture notes on Putra Blast. The other one is bubonic plague. Okay. Hantavirus. And there's been a recent scare in China of the there was a case of breakout of this particular disease, hantavirus. So these are the diseases that can be transmitted from rodent, particularly rat, to a human being. So that's the number one risk or nature of pest. In regard to rodent. Number 2, they deprade food. Dia makan makanan manusia. So depredation, food depredation, or a better term is food depredation. Food depredation. And not only the food depredation also involve contamination. Food depredation and contamination. Because it not only feed or consume food resources of human being, but also they contaminate them. And the amount that is contaminated is actually manifold greater than food that is actually consumed. Because a fraction is consumed, but the whole lot will have to be disposed of because of the contamination by urine, by feces, and also by the hairs of the rat. Okay, what are other risks? Number 3, destruction of properties. Okay, destruction of properties, furnitures, clothing, what have you. Number 4, filth. What is filth? Kekotoran. Kekotoran. Number 5, image. Image problem. Especially when you when you patronize a restaurant, kalau anda makan di restoran, a plush one, high class. So what happened when you see a rat scampering on the floor? Kalau ada tikus berlari-lari di bawah meja, definitely that will destroy or affect the image of that particular F&B outlet, piece of food and beverage, F&B, food and beverage business. Number 6, there are many more. Even can cause fire in building. Bakaran pada bangunan. And 25% of all fires in the US is actually can caused by rat feeding or biting on the electrical cord, so causing short circuitry, menyebabkan litar pintas dan bangunan tadi terbakar. This is especially so in old buildings, because they have many medieval buildings, bangunan-bangunan lama, which is prone to fire as a result of short circuitry, litar pintas. And one of the causes of such short circuitry is rat biting on the electrical cord. Okay. Number 7, it can even disrupt flight, penerbangan. And this is especially so when KLIA is first opened earlier. So many flights have been cancelled because KLIA used to be an oil palm plantation. So they clear the oil palm and then they build the airport. So the rest are still there. So they actually infest the airport and also aeroplane that is parked on the runway. And at first, this caused a lot of inconvenience, flight cancellation, and so on, because they have to flush out the rat once they are discovered. The rats are on board, because it would be fatal for an aeroplane to take off, and there's a rat in it, because they can be, nibble on the complex electrical system, and they like to actually nibble this electrical wire or the electronic network system because of the clicking sound. So that will, of course, that definitely will lead to unimaginable disaster. So these are some of the risks involved or the pest situation created by rodents. Now let's look at the 2 most common pests. Rat pest species in the urban environment. Okay, we are not going to touch upon rat pest species in the oil palm or in the rice field, because definitely those are species that are related to agricultural activities. But in this case, we are dealing with rats in the urban environment, in the towns, that share the human habitation, whether they are in the village in the urban area or in the suburb or even in the rural area. But they share in the human habitation. So these are considered as commensal rats. What is commensal? Commensal means is a Latin word which means sharing a table. Yeah? So you lay down the food on the table, and the rat are actually sharing your food on the table, literally. Shares your food. The food that you have stored in your house, and that is being consumed by the rats. So that's why it is called commensal, sharing a table. And there are the two most common rat species is number one, Rattus, and the other one is Rattus norvegicus. Okay, so this is the house rat. They come in by many different names, but we do not associate a species by its colloquial name, by its local name, because it will be referred by many different names all over the world. But when it is mentioned, Rattus, the whole world know and identify that this is the rat that we are referring to. So this is the scientific name will be referred to in technical writing and in the scientific community. And the next one is Rattus norvegicus, or norvegicus actually means Norway, the Norway rat. But like I say, it is not actually associated with Norway, but you can find this rat all over the world. Yeah? It is called a shipwreck, or because they go from harbor to harbor by boarding the cargo ship. So it is being transported all over the world. So they go from city port to another city port, and that's how they became cosmopolitan in distribution. They have a worldwide distribution. So these are the two rats that you will find in our surrounding, in our urban environment. And the other one is musculus. Now, mus is the small one, mouse. So literally, mouse is the little one, rat is a larger one. So mus refers to mice, and rattus refers to rat. But mus musculus used to be common in Kuala Lumpur up until the 70s, but now it has disappeared. We put up traps at many areas around KL, but we never catch a mice for many years now, because it has been taken over by Rattus norvegicus. And Rattus norvegicus is decreasing in number. As a result, perhaps mus musculus has been displaced ataupun tempatnya diambil alih by Rattus norvegicus. So most probably, if you set up trap anywhere in Serdang or in Petaling Jaya or in Bangi or in Shah Alam, these are the two rats that you will catch in your trap. Mus musculus is least likely, but it will be interesting if one is caught one of these days. Let us see what are the differences whereby we can differentiate between the two species. The first one, Rattus norvegicus. Let's come up with a table here. so that it is easier to follow. So you have Ratus, and you have Ratus norvegicus. So Ratus norvegicus, in terms of tail length, panjang ekor. In Ratus, tail length is longer than head and body. So you measure the head and the body, and then you measure the tail. The tail is always longer. Here, the tail is shorter than head plus body. So that's the feature that we look for when we catch a rat anywhere in the urban environment. If the tail is longer, then it is Ratus. But if the tail is shorter, then it is Ratus norvegicus. But for one who is familiar with these two species, just by looking at it, you can tell which is which. So Ratus, they have a pointed snout. Muncung dia punya muka dia muncung. As opposed to Ratus norvegicus, it has a rounded snout. Okay. And then when you look at the eyes, Ratus, they have large eyes. And Ratus norvegicus, they have small beady eyes. Mata kecil. Okay. And this one, they have large ears also as well. This one has smaller ears. And hairy. It has more hairs compared to Ratus. Okay. And this one is larger. Can go up to 500 grams. So half a kilo. Whereas this one is smaller. A typical one would weigh around 250. So actually, by looking at the particular individual, you can tell whether it's Ratus or Ratus norvegicus. So the other features, which includes the litter size, berapa bilangan anak, and also the number of litters per year, berapa kali beranak. That one you can look up in the tables that I will include in the lecture notes. Okay, do we have, anyone has any question? Oh, sorry, there are a few more students. Participate. Any other questions?
No, doctor.
Okay.
No, doctor.
Okay, now it's already 10 o'clock. I think we call it a day, and we will continue tomorrow in the lab, and we will discuss about management, how to manage pest, rat pests in the urban environment. Okay. I will share the recording for those who missed the lecture today. And please indicate your presence by typing in the chat forum. Okay.